Hello and welcome everybody. Today I'm more than excited to be talking to Elizabeth Mellen, who's the curator of the fabulous exhibition Come Eat With Me. Do you remember? The one I've been going on about for ages. It's at Rochester Cathedral. Love you still to come along if you want to. But Elizabeth, you're the main reason why we have this exhibition. It's been amazing. How did you come to be such a fantastic curator of art?
Well, I've been involved in and interested in art all my life, actually, ever since I was at school and studied art O level and A level, and sat as a model for the local art group. Was involved in a lot of artistic things. And my family had a family friend who was the main collector of Frank Auerbach. So that was another entree into the art world. After Cambridge, where I studied law, I went into history of art, which I read at the University of East Anglia, and then worked along the way. I'd worked in the V&A, Chelsea Arts Club. I'd worked as an icon restorer in the Dick Temple, Richard Temple icon workshop in
I didn't know
Knightsbridge.
that.
Lots of different jobs in the arts, including Kettle's Yard in Cambridge, where I did some fundraising, and the Fitzwilliam Museum. So a lot of different art world jobs. And then I worked as a curator on an exhibition in Basel in Germany, in Switzerland, sorry, the Basel Kunstmuseum. And following that, got involved with as a corporate art consultant with an organisation in Wapping, which was then absolutely full of artists. So I got involved with many contemporary artists and helped organise the first Wapping Art Show, which was in a warehouse in Wapping. Yes, it was a very wide-ranging experience of the art world. I was also collecting art at the time with my then boyfriend. I was really invested in the art world. I worked as a corporate art consultant for about 20 years altogether, latterly really on the sponsorship side. So I worked at the Royal Academy of Arts and the Esterick Collection, both in London, and a small college called Cordwainers College, which is now part of the London College of Fashion, and also the London School of Economics. So I had a connection with education as well. I then became a teacher for about 20 years, and it's only recently that I've set up a very small, not-for-profit organisation called Spirit Arts that I've come back to curating, and this is our very first, our inaugural exhibition. So yes, that's a potted history.
Well, that as a potted history, that's quite immense. And it was on my retirement that I decided to return to my basic instinct, if you like, of art. Is that what happened to you? Was it something that happened
Yes,
sort of later?
yes, absolutely. I'm not actually fully retired. I've only recently scaled down my working hours as a teacher, but yes, it's just coming to the last period of my life, I suppose. I really want to go back to what I really love, and that is spirituality and art, which is how I've come to set up Spirit Arts.
Lovely. I can relate to that, and so can a lot of my audience, because I don't know if you know, but I'm very much into rejuvenation, and I see this phase as just the beginning of the next phase. If you start a venture like this at this point in your life, you can only go forward. So there's so much more to come. It's interesting. It's very exciting for artists in the area. So how did you go about choosing, or did you not choose the Rochester Cathedral for this exhibition? And maybe describe what the exhibition is about.
Well, it was a little bit of both. In February last year, I was actually in bed just having had surgery when I read about the table coming to Rochester Cathedral. I was immediately absolutely gripped by the backstory of the table, how it was made of 5,000-year-old bog oak. I'm very, very interested in anything historic, especially prehistoric. And this particular table, even though I hadn't seen it, I hadn't even seen a photograph of it, it just immediately had a resonance for me. As I say, I was in bed. Well, I couldn't walk for a while, and I hadn't seen the table itself. When I read about the fact that the cathedral were interested in having events and exhibitions possibly to do with or on the table. They wanted the table actually to be used. So they put out a call basically for projects, and I had already begun to think about the Last Supper and the table. I'd immediately, with my art historical background, remembered the Last Supper, and then began thinking about what a table meant, and the nature of fellowship and eating and community and so on. So there were lots of links, artistic links with tables and art projects, and but my particular focus was the Last Supper. So basically, I almost had a vision of the table covered with icons. Now, the icons I'd actually seen in a church in Burham, which is a beautiful ancient church nearby in Kent, where beautiful iconic roundels by an artist called Jane First were displayed on the wall on these sort of flaky chalk white walls. The roundels were of the Virgin Mary, her head, and Christ's head, and in fact his feet and hands. But they were isolated within an icon, and the icons were made of were gilded with gold leaf. So there was the prototype for a roundel as an icon, standing as an individual work of art, as opposed to an icon in a traditional form, which is like a window looking into the soul, or looking into at the subject of the icon, the saint or the holy person. So I had all these ideas at once, and it formulated into an idea of recreating or reimagining the Last Supper as a series of iconic roundels along the length of this 13-meter table. So I then, in fact, began to think of other aspects of that particular meal. The fact that it was in first century Jerusalem, the fact that several of the apostles were actually fishermen, and the music that would have been around, and the smells, and the type of food. Ideas kept flooding into my head. And so the initial project involved the icons along the table by a variety of artists in Kent. And I also imagined fishing nets, hand-knotted sort of antique ancient fishing nets along the table, and pottery as well from the first century, which I'd already imagined that bit, that it would be by Aylesford pottery, because initially those pots used to be made by monks, and I felt it was a nice connection to have a Catholic institution, the Aylesford Priory, as part of the project, simply to develop a sort of diverse religious flavour, a sort of ecumenical flavour, if you like. Again, I also thought of olive wood, and how perhaps we might have olive wood bowls with herbs and spices from the area, from the Middle East, in the bowls for people to touch and smell. I also wanted to approach someone who's connected with the cathedral, who's I think it's the Archbishop of Jerusalem, and develop a project with him whereby we planted an olive tree in the cathedral, an olive tree of peace in the cathedral. This incidentally was all before the current conflicts in the area. So anyway, there were a range of different projects, and I put them all together, developed them. I wrote a sort of art historical rationale for the project and explained in detail how it would all work, produced a proposal and submitted it to the cathedral. And then I went along to the cathedral with my friend and colleague Jane first, who was now the artistic director of the as then yet unconfirmed project, and another trustee of the fledgling organisation Spirit Arts, Jatin Patel. A few other artists, actually, two other iconographers who are involved in the exhibition, Irene Godfrey and Janice Emmert, were involved at that early stage as well. Yes. So we met with the cathedral authorities and explained everything in detail. There were a lot of them, actually, a lot of different aspects of the cathedral management were involved or would be involved. The events team, the security team, the vergers, and also the project had to be approved as being what they call missional. So it had to fit in with the mission of the cathedral, the spiritual mission of the cathedral. So we had all these different aspects of the project to be approved, really, before we got the final approval, which didn't really come through until June. So we really only had from June to, say, the end of January to get the project up and running, find all the artists and get all the art together.
Is that because the limited time at the table, the nations table, was actually going to be in the cathedral, or was that?
No, it was just that because of the complexity of putting on events at the cathedral, they hadn't. It was not a quick turnaround to get a decision. So several months were involved in getting a decision, really, and then so we had about 6 months to implement it. However, along the way, quite a few aspects that I've just described to you, such as the fishing nets and so on the table, had to be either changed or omitted from the project due to health and safety or other concerns. So the element of the food was not, we couldn't do that. We were going to have icon workshops as well, but due to capacity, numbers of us available to do it, we weren't able to deliver that either. The fishing nets became a slightly different aspect. So the fishing nets we sourced from Whitstable. Jane went to Whitstable and managed to find some fishing nets from some fishermen who were literally just knotting them on the quayside. And these have been displayed in a lovely frame made by a carpenter friend of Jane's, and children are invited to put a little silver fish on which they can write a message or a prayer or an intention to go in the shoal of fish or in the net in the frame. So that aspect is still there, but as I say, some of it had to be changed or omitted. Another time we might be able to bring some of those other aspects back. Yes.
Yeah. So how successful has this been? How difficult was it to get the artists and for them? Because it's based on Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, isn't it?
Yes, it's based on Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. Obviously we needed at least 13 artists for the project. However, I realised and explored it with Jane that 13 artists on the table wouldn't be enough. because in the Last Supper, it's all on a single plane. The painting is all on a single plane. They're all facing the audience, as it were. We're on the other side of the table. But that would look rather strange on the table if we only had icons along one side. So we then thought perhaps we could include evangelists and other significant people or characters within the story. So we've got the evangelists. Mary Magdalene is there, and of course in some accounts she might be there. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is also there. St. John is there. So it's not strictly scriptural, although obviously it does take as its starting point the story of the Last Supper, the Passover meal in the Bible.
That's wonderful for children. I know I've taken my grandchildren and I've met friends who brought their children, and it's a lovely story. There's a lot to tell and explain to other people
Yes.
about this exhibition.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the children have. I've been astonished actually how much the children have really taken from it and really enjoyed it. They've approached it on many different levels. Some of them have said, "Oh, that's my name." A little boy yesterday told me that his name was on 2 of the roundels, so he was very excited about that. Other children have loved seeing the animals, and of course they do actually enjoy doing the fish activity and writing a little prayer. There does seem to have been something for everyone there, and it's been immensely popular so far. We've had up to nearly 1,000 visitors on some of the days, so it's been really, really popular.
So overall, it's much more, isn't it? Overall, because when you come into the cathedral, it's very difficult not to go to the exhibition. So
yes, absolutely. Well,
they'll be busy, but
yes, obviously we're fortunate in several respects. One, that the cathedral itself is an astonishing, glorious destination, the second oldest cathedral in the country, a seat of religion and prayer for well over 1,000 years. So that's in itself a destination. Then the table, so wonderfully restored by Hamish Lowe and the Fenland Oak Trust, is another draw itself, and that's coming to the end of its time in the cathedral. So there may be a bit of a catalyst there, a little bit of a push for people to come in and see it before it leaves. And then, of course, just the huge spectrum of wonderful artists we've managed to draw in from all over Kent. And fortunately many of those artists have spread the word among their own networks, and so we have been able to draw in people from all over the county and in fact the southeast.
There's a various amount of different mediums and styles, textures even, although you have this theme of an icon and you have lovely icons there's a lot of freedom given to the artists.
Yes, yes. Yes, that's a very good point actually, because the one thing I think that we were looking for in the artists was a kinship, if you like, with observational drawing, that artists had to be able to produce a face, a recognizable face that could be a portrait of the characters, and that they might be able to intuit the emotions of that betrayal moment that we're depicting in the installation. So it has, by its nature, given an opportunity to artists whose work is not necessarily normally very popular at the moment, when art tends to be, quite different, sometimes very large, very political, and not of a human scale. So yes, it's been it was interesting to recruit the artists in that sense, and quite difficult, because one, we didn't have much time. We spread our network as far as we could in the southeast, particularly Kent, approaching various art groups to see who might be suitable, and then who might be interested. So it did involve approaching a lot of different artists, and then a few artists also came connected to other artists. So yes, in that sense, it's very diverse.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, it's very fabulous. I am, well, enthralled by the response of my friends, family, connections, the support I've been given through my social networks, etc. And so I think manifolding that with everybody in the experience, there's been a tremendous amount of goodwill, good intention, heightening of most people's interest in art and local art and portraiture. And also, obviously, within an interest, stimulating or re-stimulating interest in the Renaissance and the church and Christianity and the stories of Jesus the Christ. And there's been lots of questions, lots of answers from different people. Not everybody who's participated has been an active Christian, and some have been quite atheist. And that's been wonderful, because even they have said they've undergone some kind of spiritual experience from undertaking the task. So I think it's fabulous, and I really think it's been a worthwhile experience for me,
Absolutely.
but also hopefully for you too.
Absolutely.
And I hope you do much more.
Very much so. Very much so. Yes, it's been very, very a huge privilege really to work with all the artists and to see how hard they have worked on focusing on their subject matter and you know, literally trying to understand the character and then depict the character, the personality and the emotion. And it has been quite spiritual for all of them. They've also mentioned that it might affect their future practice, because all the roundels were gold leafed, so many of them hadn't done gold leafing before. So that's another skill which some people have said they really enjoyed and they will incorporate in their practice in future. And for me, yes, it's been a return to working directly with artists, which I love doing, and understanding the motivation of artists. And I do feel in life in general that many artists occupy a kind of shamanistic role within our society, that, you know, the artists are there to envision things for the rest of us and to depict things for everyone to understand and sometimes to interpret as well. So I really wanted to try and find artists who were sympathetic to the ideas behind spirit arts, which is renewal through art and the spirit. So yes, I do hope that we can become involved and collaborate with organizations and with artists and bringing them together in a unity of spirit in the future. And we're looking at some projects and possibly the return of this particular exhibition to the table in another location. So hopefully that will work out.
That'd be wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth. Could you just say how anyone could get in touch with you? How would somebody find you if they want to talk to you about projects or this project in the future?
They're very welcome to contact me via LinkedIn or my social media, and also my email is absolutely fine.
Lovely. Well, I'll put a link to your email and those things when the video goes up. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you loved Elizabeth as much as I do. It was really, really interesting to hear her story and how such a big project and an empowering project for so many people, the participants, the organisers and the public, has come into being. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you at the next time. Bye.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.